The hallway lights were already dimming when she finally reached the clock-out machine. It was the same soft yellow glow that always came on at night, meant to calm tired minds. Her shift had gone longer than planned. It usually did. She slid her badge, heard the familiar beep, and let out a slow breath she didn't realize she'd been holding all day. 12 hours on her feet had left her shoulders tight and her legs heavy. Her shoes felt tighter than when she had arrived that morning. She rolled her neck once, just enough to ease the stiffness, then picked up her bag from the bench by the wall. The bag was simple, worn at the edges, nothing special. It carried snacks she never had time to eat, a phone charger, and a folded sweater for cold nights. Around her, the hospital was changing moods. Day staff were leaving with quick waves and tired smiles. Night staff were arriving, coffee cups in hand, talking in low voices. A cleaner pushed a cart down the hallway, the wheels squeaking in a steady rhythm. Everything felt normal, predictable, safe. Someone near the nurse's station laughed softly about a mistake on a chart. Another complained about traffic outside. A doctor passed by, already focused on his phone. No one looked twice at her. She was just another nurse ending another long day. She walked toward the exit, passing the glass doors that showed the darkening sky outside. It had rained earlier, and the pavement reflected the lights from the parking lot like broken mirrors. The air inside smelled faintly of sanitizer and warm food from the staff cafeteria. She paused for a moment, adjusting the strap of her bag, reminding herself to pick up groceries on the way home. Her thoughts were small and ordinary. Dinner, a shower, sleep, maybe calling someone she hadn't spoken to in a while. Nothing dramatic, nothing important. As she pushed through the doors, cool evening air brushed her face. It felt good after hours indoors. She stepped onto the concrete path that led past the emergency entrance and toward the staff parking area. A few other employees were outside, scattered in small groups, some smoking, some checking their phones, some just standing quietly as if they needed a moment before returning to real life. She nodded politely to a security guard she recognized. He nodded back, already half distracted by a radio clipped to his shoulder. A car engine started somewhere nearby. The world kept moving. She had taken only a few steps when a low sound reached her ears. At first, it blended with the city noise. She ignored it, thinking it was just a large truck passing by or distant construction. But the sound grew louder, deeper, heavier. It vibrated faintly in her chest. She slowed, then stopped. The sound wasn't coming from the road. It was coming from above. People around her began to notice too. A couple of nurses looked up, shielding their eyes with their hands. The security guard straightened, his attention suddenly sharp. The air itself seemed to move, pushed by something unseen. The sound became unmistakable. Rotating blades. Fast. Powerful. A helicopter was approaching. She stood still, her bag hanging from one hand. Her face didn't change much, but her eyes tracked a movement in the sky. The helicopter came into view over the nearby buildings, dark against the fading light. Its lights blinked in steady patterns. It didn't look like a news helicopter or a medical one. It was military. The noise grew intense as it descended, sending loose papers skidding across the ground. Wind whipped coats and hair. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Phones came out, held up in shaky hands. No one had expected this. Hospital helicopters were not rare, but they usually landed on the roof, bringing critical patients in or out. This one wasn't heading there. It angled lower, moving toward an open area near the far end of the lot. Someone whispered, asking if there had been an accident. Another guessed it was a drill. A third said maybe someone important was inside the hospital. She heard all of it, but she didn't speak. The helicopter touched down with a final roar, then slowly powered down. Dust and small bits of trash swirled around before settling back on the ground. The sudden quiet afterward felt heavy, like the moment after a storm. A side door slid open. Several soldiers stepped out. Their movements were quick and practiced. They scanned the area, not in panic, but with calm focus. Their uniforms were clean, their boots steady on the pavement. One of them spoke briefly into a headset, eyes still moving. People stared openly now. No one tried to get closer. Something about the soldier's presence drew an invisible line. The security guard took a few steps forward, clearly unsure what to do. Before he could say anything, one of the soldiers raised a hand slightly, a simple gesture that said, "Not yet." The guard stopped. Then the soldiers began to walk. They did not head toward the emergency entrance. They did not move toward the main doors. They walked straight toward her. At first, it didn't register. She thought they were passing by, that she just happened to be in the way. She shifted slightly, preparing to step aside. But they didn't change direction. A nurse standing nearby frowned. Someone else muttered, "What's going on?" Her heart beat a little faster, but her face remained steady. She set her bag down by her feet without thinking, freeing her hands. She stood upright, shoulders back, her tired posture from moments ago replaced by something firmer. The soldiers stopped a few feet in front of her. They stood straight. One of them, who looked older than the rest, took a single step forward. His voice was clear, respectful, and loud enough for those nearby to hear over the lingering noise of the helicopter. "Ma'am." The word landed like a dropped tray in a silent room. A few people gasped. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it had to be a joke. The security guard's eyes widened. The nurse who had been chatting beside her froze, mouth slightly open. She answered quietly, her voice calm. "Yes." There was no confusion in her tone, no surprise. The soldier nodded once, as if confirming something he already knew. "We've been instructed to escort you." Murmurs spread instantly. "Escort her where?" someone whispered. "Is she in trouble?" another asked. She glanced around briefly, taking in the faces she had worked beside for months. People who knew her coffee order. People who had seen her cry in supply rooms and laugh during late-night breaks. They were staring at her now like she was a stranger. She reached down, picked up her bag, and slung it over her shoulder. Her movements were unhurried. "I need 1 minute," she said. The soldier hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She turned and walked back toward the entrance doors. The automatic doors opened as usual, as if nothing extraordinary was happening. Inside, the hospital hummed on, unaware. She approached her supervisor, who had just stepped out of office after hearing the noise. "There's an urgent matter," she said simply. "I have to leave. I don't know when I'll be back." Her supervisor stared at her, searching her face for answers. "Is everything okay?" She offered a small, reassuring smile. "It will be." That was all she said. She turned and walked back outside. The soldiers were waiting exactly where she had left them. One of them opened a path for her, without a word. As she walked toward the helicopter, the wind picked up again, tugging at her clothes. No one tried to stop her. No one knew how. As she stepped closer to the aircraft, she did not look back. The nurse who had clocked out moments ago was still there, but so was someone else. Someone who had never truly left another life behind. The helicopter lights reflected in her eyes as she approached, steady and unafraid, while behind her the hospital stood silent, full of people who had spent a long time wondering who she really was. The helicopter's blade slowed but did not stop entirely, creating a constant low hum that filled the air. Dust and small pieces of debris still swirled around the landing site. She stepped closer, each footfall steady, as if she had done this 100 times before. The soldiers flanked her on both sides, their eyes scanning the surroundings, alert yet controlled. Their presence gave a strange sense of security. There was danger somewhere, but they seemed ready for it. A crowd had gathered across the lot, mostly hospital staff, and a few curious drivers who had stopped when they noticed the aircraft. Some tried to take pictures. Some whispered questions to each other. Everyone was trying to understand what was happening, but no one dared approach. It was clear the helicopter and the soldiers were not ordinary. She adjusted her bag over her shoulder and walked past them. The air smelled faintly of fuel from the helicopter, mixed with the damp scent of the recently rained-on concrete. She kept her eyes forward, moving calmly but deliberately, like she had rehearsed this many times in her mind. The lead soldier, the one who had spoken first, gestured for her to stop at a small set of steps leading to the helicopter's open door. She looked up at the cabin, noting the quiet efficiency inside. It wasn't fancy, but it was purposeful. Straps, equipment, and seats were neatly arranged. Nothing was out of place. She could sense the weight of preparation, the readiness for action, even in the smallest details. "Are you ready?" the soldier asked, his voice low, almost conversational. He didn't speak too loudly, knowing any loud sound would draw attention. His tone suggested he expected an immediate, confident answer. She nodded. "Yes." The other soldiers formed a semicircle around the landing site, ensuring no one could approach without their permission. They moved like shadows, professional and disciplined. Each step and movement seemed calculated to protect without threatening unnecessarily. People watching from a distance could sense the quiet authority and precision. She climbed the steps into the helicopter, feeling the slight sway as the weight adjusted. The interior smelled of leather, machinery, and faint antiseptic, a mix that made her think of both hospitals and military bases. She took a seat near the center, away from the door, but with a clear view of the outside. It was enough to see the hospital, the gathering crowd, and the dim city lights reflecting off wet streets. The helicopter's rotors began spinning faster again, stirring the air in sudden gusts. She felt her hair whipping around her face and tugged it back behind her ears. The soldiers checked their equipment one last time, quietly communicating with nods and gestures. There was no conversation, no unnecessary words. Every movement had a purpose. She looked at the soldiers, studying them without being intrusive. Each face was calm but alert, eyes scanning, hands ready for any task. There was no doubt in her mind that they were capable of handling whatever had brought them here. Their presence was both comforting and unnerving. She wondered silently about the events that had led to this moment. Something big had happened, something urgent enough to call her out from her ordinary life. The lead soldier looked at her again. "We will be in the air shortly. Please remain seated and secure your bag." She did as instructed, moving the strap to sit firmly on her lap, and keeping a hand on it to prevent any sudden movement. The helicopter lifted smoothly, the ground slipping away beneath them. She looked down at the hospital and the small crowd, shrinking quickly as the cityscape spread around them. The world she had known just moments ago felt distant. The interior of the helicopter was quiet except for the constant drone of the rotors. She could hear her own breathing and the subtle sounds of the soldiers checking equipment. The hum of the engines was steady and reassuring in its consistency. It was a strange comfort, a rhythm that made her feel alive and alert. As they flew, the landscape unfolded below them. Streets, buildings, and parks passed in a blur of lights and shadows. The city was alive, unaware of the quiet urgency in the helicopter above. She felt a disconnect, like watching a familiar world through a new lens. Everything seemed ordinary from a distance, yet she knew extraordinary events were unfolding around her. One of the soldiers finally spoke, breaking the silence. "We should reach the location in 20 minutes. Are you prepared for what comes next?" She nodded. "I've been prepared." The soldier paused, considering her words. His eyes softened slightly, acknowledging the weight of her statement. He didn't ask for details, and she didn't offer them. Some things she knew could not be explained in passing. Actions, not words, would reveal the truth. The flight continued, the city slowly fading beneath clouds and twilight. The soldier beside her adjusted his headset and spoke briefly into the microphone. She couldn't hear the reply, but the movement of his lips and the slight tilt of his head indicated acknowledgement. The coordination was precise, almost silent to anyone who didn't know what to look for. She focused on the sensation of flight, the vibration of the helicopter, and the hum of the engines. It was calming in a strange way, a reminder of control in a situation that had begun with so much uncertainty. Her thoughts wandered to her co-workers, still standing outside, still thinking she was just a tired nurse heading home. They had no idea of the life that had quietly waited beneath her uniform. The lead soldier checked a tablet on his lap, glancing at coordinates and timing. He didn't speak, but his movements were deliberate. She could tell from his demeanor that they were approaching a critical moment. The tension in the cabin was subtle but palpable, held in check by professionalism and focus. She adjusted her posture, straightening her back and resting her hands lightly on her knees. She didn't need to speak. Preparation wasn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it was quiet, internal, a mental readiness honed over years. She had learned this early in her previous life, a life few would guess existed behind her gentle smile and steady hands in the hospital. Outside, the city lights blurred as they flew higher. The helicopter tilted slightly, maneuvering with precision over obstacles and terrain. She could feel the subtle shift in balance and compensated automatically. Every motion, every sensation was familiar, yet every flight carried its own risks. The soldier next to her spoke again, his voice calm and low. "We are nearing the destination. Situations there may be volatile. We need you ready to respond immediately." She inhaled slowly. "I'm ready." There was no hesitation, no fear in her tone. It was simply a statement of fact. She had trained for moments like this, even if most of her days were spent tending to ordinary needs in quiet hospitals. The contrast between her current life and her past made the calmness feel almost surreal. The helicopter began its descent toward a clearing she could barely make out in the dim light below. Trees, open ground, and a few scattered buildings became visible as the aircraft approached. The soldiers adjusted quickly, checking positions and communicating silently through hand signals. She tightened the straps on her bag, ensuring it would not hinder movement. Every detail mattered. Even the smallest misstep could cause complications. She had learned to respect precision, to trust it completely. The helicopter touched down gently, settling on a clearing without unnecessary noise. Dust and small debris swirled again, dancing in the fading light. The rotor blade slowed but kept a steady hum, ready to lift off again at a moment's notice. The soldiers moved first, stepping out and securing perimeter. Their actions were automatic, precise, and silent. She followed calmly, her bag secure, eyes scanning the surroundings. The air smelled different here, earthy, mixed with faint traces of smoke from distant fires. It reminded her of places she'd been, zones where every detail mattered. The lead soldier turned to her, his expression unreadable but his posture relaxed. "This is the point. Stay with us. Follow instructions." She nodded, understood. The clearing was quiet, yet charged with unseen tension. She could sense the significance of this place, even without knowing all the details. Her presence here was required, and she had no choice but to act. Every instinct, every skill she had, was now in play. The ordinary nurse had stepped aside, revealing a readiness that few could comprehend. As the helicopter lifted slightly, preparing to hover if needed, she took a deep breath. The wind tugged at her clothes, the earth beneath her feet steady yet alive with energy. She was ready, calm, and fully aware. The soldiers around her acknowledged her silently, their trust unspoken but understood. She had clocked out hours ago, left her ordinary life behind, and stepped into a situation that demanded every ounce of focus she could muster. Yet, despite the unknowns, she moved forward without hesitation. The world she had known moments ago was gone, replaced by a mission that only she could face, a reality that few could imagine. The clearing, the helicopter, the soldiers. They were all part of a plan she could not yet see in full. But she was prepared. She always had been. And as she moved deeper into the unknown, every step was measured, deliberate, and necessary. She was ready to confront whatever awaited, even as the fading light of evening cast long shadows across the ground. The helicopter had settled into a steady hover as the clearing beneath them stretched out, open and quiet. The soldiers were efficient, forming a protective circle, watching every tree line, every shadow. She stepped carefully onto ground, feeling the uneven earth beneath her feet. It was a small relief to feel solid ground again, yet she remained alert, aware that danger could be anywhere. The lead soldier approached her again, lowering his voice but keeping it firm. "We need to move quickly. Follow my lead and stay aware of everything around you." She nodded, her bag secure, her steps precise. Her eyes swept the area as she followed the soldier, taking in details that most would overlook. Fallen branches, the faint sound of animals moving in the distance, even the smell of smoke from far away. Every detail mattered. Every sense was alert. The soldiers moved as a unit, fluid and silent, like shadows gliding across the ground. She kept pace, knowing her role was as much about presence and readiness as anything else. She was not just a nurse here, not just someone in ordinary scrubs. She was trained, prepared, Capable. Stay close. One of the soldiers said, his voice calm. He glanced at her briefly, a small gesture of reassurance. They didn't speak much. Words were unnecessary. Their coordination was near instinctive, each action precise, measured. She fell into the rhythm easily, matching their pace without thinking too much about it. As they moved further from the clearing, the trees became thicker, shadows longer. The city lights behind them were distant and dim. They were entering a space that felt removed from ordinary life, a place where her skills would be called on fully. She felt the weight of responsibilities settle on her shoulders, heavy but familiar. The lead soldier stopped suddenly, holding a hand up. The group froze. She followed suit, stopping mid-step. The soldier crouched slightly, eyes scanning, then gestured for her to come forward. She approached carefully, noting the subtle shift in the soldier's attention. Something was near, or something had changed. "Look ahead," the lead soldier whispered. She did. A small group of figures was visible in the dim light, partially hidden by the trees. They weren't moving quickly, but their presence was deliberate. She could feel tension in the air, a silent warning. The soldiers around her shifted slightly, forming a protective line between her and the figures. Her mind worked fast, cataloging possibilities, predicting outcomes. She didn't panic. That wasn't her way. Fear was a tool when controlled, but she preferred focus. She studied the shapes, their movements, the way they held themselves. Something about them didn't feel hostile, yet caution was necessary. "Stay behind me," the lead soldier said. He moved forward slightly, signaling the others to spread out. She followed, careful, aware of every sound, every movement. Her training, long forgotten by many who only saw her as a hospital nurse, came back to her in waves. Alertness, calculation, calm under pressure. As they approached, one of the figures stepped forward, raising a hand. The gesture was cautious, almost formal. The lead soldier nodded slightly, lowering his weapon. She noticed a subtle relief in the other soldiers' postures, though they remained vigilant. She stayed quiet, observing. Then the figure spoke. The voice was calm, respectful, and carried an authority that matched the soldiers. "Ma'am," the voice said, and her heart stilled for a fraction of a second. The word, simple yet powerful, confirmed everything she had sensed. They knew her, her skills, her presence here was expected. She answered simply, without hesitation. "Yes." The figure nodded once. "We've been waiting for you. The situation is urgent. Follow us and stay alert." Her bag shifted slightly on her shoulder as she adjusted it, preparing for movement. She didn't ask questions. The urgency in the voice, the silent communication of the soldiers around her, told her enough. She was stepping into a scenario that required immediate action, precision, and composure. Ordinary words were useless here. Actions would speak. The group moved forward, deeper into the woods. Each step was careful, measured, deliberate. The sound of the helicopter faded behind them, replaced by the rustling of leaves, the occasional snap of a twig underfoot, and the soft, controlled breathing of the team. Her senses sharpened, her mind cataloging every detail. She noticed patterns in the shadows, changes in the wind, shifts in temperature. Every detail might matter. One of the soldiers spoke softly to her. "Stay close. The next part will require your full attention." She nodded. She didn't need further explanation. Her mind was already preparing, running through possibilities, recalling training long ago used in situations far removed from this ordinary life. She had learned to act without hesitation, to observe without distraction, to anticipate without fear. The trees opened slightly, revealing a clearing with vehicles and equipment carefully positioned. Men and women moved with efficiency, speaking in short, clear sentences, gestures precise. The place had the organized chaos of preparation, yet every action seemed measured. She could feel the urgency here, but it was controlled, disciplined. A man approached her, mid-30s, authoritative, yet not imposing. He looked at her directly, eyes sharp but kind. "Ma'am, thank you for coming so quickly. We have a situation that requires your expertise." She straightened, placing her bag down carefully and opening it to check its contents. Not that she needed much here. Her skills were in her mind, her hands, her presence. Tools mattered less than experience, judgment, and composure. I understand. Lead the way. He nodded, satisfied. We have casualties in a zone nearby. Medical support is limited, and only someone with your experience can handle this efficiently. Her heart remained steady. She had faced worse conditions in the past. Controlled chaos that required focus and quick action. This was not a hospital, not a typical emergency, but her skills transferred. Observation, care, decision-making. They all matter more than surroundings. The soldiers flanked her as they moved again, ensuring a secure path. She noticed the careful coordination, the silent communication, the way each person knew exactly what to do. Even in an unfamiliar environment, she could see order amidst potential chaos. That order would guide her actions, just as it had in countless other situations. As they walked, she saw the subtle signs of prior events: disturbed earth, scattered equipment, and faint traces of smoke in the distance. She didn't react outwardly, but cataloged every detail, preparing mentally for what awaited. Every step, every breath was purposeful. She could sense the gravity of the situation, the lives that might depend on precise action and calm judgment. The lead soldier glanced at her, a silent check, and she met his eyes with steady composure. No words were needed. She understood the trust placed in her, the responsibility she carried. It was heavy, but she had carried it before. She could carry it again. Finally, they reached the edge of the zone. The scene was chaotic yet contained. Injured individuals were tended to. Soldiers moved swiftly, and controlled urgency filled the space. She stepped forward, assessing quickly. Her eyes scanned injuries, resources, and the flow of movement. She identified priorities immediately, her hands ready, her mind focused. "Begin triage," she instructed softly, her voice calm but commanding. The soldiers and medics adjusted instantly, recognizing the authority in her tone. She moved among the injured with practiced efficiency, checking vital signs, administering aid, and giving clear, concise directions. Every action was measured, effective, and immediate. Time seemed to stretch and contract as she worked. Each decision mattered, each movement precise. The ordinary nurse of hours ago was now fully revealed in her professional capacity, experienced and decisive. Her calm presence brought structure to a situation that could have been overwhelming. The lead soldier stood nearby, observing, nodding subtly as she coordinated care. Her ability to assess, instruct, and act without hesitation inspired confidence in everyone around her. Even the most trained personnel deferred to her judgment when it mattered most. She wasn't just a nurse here. She was a leader, a guide, a stabilizing force. As she continued, the sun dipped further, casting long shadows across the scene. The transition from daylight to dusk did not distract her. Her focus remained absolute, her mind and body fully engaged. She had left her ordinary life behind hours ago, and every skill, every lesson, every ounce of experience she had accumulated was now in use. She moved from one injured individual to another, coordinating, stabilizing, instructing. The soldiers followed her lead without question, their trust implicit. The scene, initially tense and uncertain, began to take shape under her guidance. Care was delivered efficiently, priorities set clearly, and the chaotic energy transformed into controlled, purposeful action. The magnitude of the situation was immense, yet she did not waver. She worked calmly, decisively, efficiently. Every person under her care knew they were in capable hands. Every soldier, every medic, every individual involved could sense the experience and authority she carried naturally. As night fully settled in, lights were set up to illuminate the area. Her work continued with unwavering focus, a quiet command guiding everyone around her. The ordinary nurse who had clocked out hours ago was gone, replaced by a professional whose presence commanded respect, whose judgment saved lives, and whose composure inspired confidence. The scene was intense, urgent, yet under control. She had arrived quietly without fanfare, but her impact was immediate and profound. Lives depended on her, and she delivered without hesitation, a steady force amid uncertainty, a reminder that some heroes work silently, their strength revealed only when truly needed. As the night settled around the clearing, the chaos gradually became organized. Injured individuals were receiving treatment. Soldiers moved with precision, and the scene, while still urgent, was controlled. She stood for a moment, breathing steadily, surveying the area. Every life counted, every movement mattered, and she had become the center of calm authority. Yet, in the brief moment of stillness, memories from her past flickered in her mind, like distant lights guiding her through darkness. Years ago, she had trained in ways few could imagine. Before the hospital, before the ordinary days of shifts and patience, she had served in environments that demanded discipline, courage, and unwavering focus. She had learned to act quickly under extreme pressure, to make life-and-death decisions in seconds, and to maintain clarity when the world seemed chaotic and unpredictable. It was a world far removed from scrubs and hospital routines, but the lessons had never faded. Her colleagues in the hospital had no idea of this history. They saw her as reliable, steady, and compassionate, but ordinary in the ways of the world. Few could have guessed the life she had left behind, the training that had shaped her hands and mind, the experiences that had honed her instincts. She had chosen a hospital to live quietly, to heal rather than command, to give rather than direct. But the skills never left her. They were dormant, waiting for a moment when the world required more than ordinary care. As she moved among the injured, her mind replayed moments from the past. She remembered the first mission where she had been responsible for more than one life at a time, where hesitation could mean disaster. She remembered learning to read the environment, to sense danger before it was visible, to communicate with gestures and small signs rather than words. Every lesson was now being applied in this clearing. Every instinct refined over years of experience. A soldier approached her quietly, speaking just above a whisper. "Are you okay?" She looked at him briefly, a faint smile touching her lips. "I'm fine. Focus on your tasks." He nodded, understanding immediately. There was no need for explanations. He had seen her work, her authority, the way she moved with calm determination. She had earned respect not by title, not by uniform, but by action. Her presence alone commanded attention and trust. She moved to a group of injured individuals who required immediate care. Her hands worked with precision, checking vital signs, instructing soldiers on what to do, and prioritizing those who needed urgent attention. Her voice was calm, her instructions clear, her movements deliberate. Time seemed to bend around her, moments stretching and contracting as she acted efficiently. In a brief pause, she reflected on why she had left that world. The missions had been intense, life-altering, and often unseen. She had witnessed both the fragility and resilience of life, the moments when one decision could save or cost lives. She had learned to carry the weight of responsibility without letting it break her. But she had also learned the value of ordinary life, of quiet moments, of small acts of care that did not require combat or strategy, just attention and compassion. Now, in this clearing, those two worlds collided. The ordinary nurse and the trained professional merged seamlessly. Her past informed her present. Her skills provided structure to chaos, and her calm presence offered reassurance to those around her. She was both healer and strategist, caregiver and leader, and the soldiers recognized it immediately. One of the injured looked up at her, fear and confusion in their eyes. She knelt beside them, placing a hand on their shoulder. "You're safe now," she said softly. "We're going to take care of you. Stay calm." Her words, simple yet firm, had an effect. The individual relaxed slightly, trusting her instinctively. She continued to work, moving from one person to another, applying her knowledge and experience to stabilize, reassure, and coordinate. Each decision was quick but precise, each action deliberate and effective. The lead soldier approached again, standing slightly to the side. "Your experience is invaluable here," he said quietly. "We couldn't have done this without you." She nodded, not out of pride, but acknowledgement. Recognition was not what drove her. It was duty, responsibility, and the quiet knowledge that her presence made a difference. She had always understood that the work mattered more than accolades, that lives mattered more than recognition. In the quiet moments between actions, she thought about the choices that had led her here. She had chosen a life that appeared ordinary, but she had never abandoned her skills or her understanding of responsibility. Those skills were part of her, and when the world required them, she did not hesitate. She acted without question, guided by instinct, experience, and an unwavering commitment to help. The clearing had transformed into a controlled environment. Injured individuals were being cared for. Soldiers moved efficiently, and initial chaos had been tamed. She had become the anchor around which the team organized itself. Her calm authority shaped the scene, guiding actions and decisions with a steady hand. She paused for a moment, catching her breath, her eyes scanning the area. The soldiers moved around her, carrying out instructions, their confidence bolstered by her presence. She had become more than a nurse in this moment. She had become a leader, a symbol of order and care amidst uncertainty. As night deepened, lights were set up to illuminate the zone. She continued her work, each action deliberate, each instruction clear. Her experience allowed her to anticipate needs, direct resources, and provide care with efficiency and compassion. The ordinary nurse who had clocked out hours ago had returned to a world that required more than ordinary skills, and she responded with precision and grace. Memories of her past continued to surface, not as distractions, but as reminders of why she could act with such clarity. Every mission, every challenge, every moment of intense responsibility had prepared her for this. She understood the stakes, the urgency, and the value of each life under her care. Her past was not forgotten. It was a foundation upon which her present actions were built. The soldiers respected her not just for her skills, but for her composure and judgment. Her presence reassured them, provided structure, and reinforced their confidence in the unfolding operations. She had stepped into a role that demanded expertise and authority, and she fulfilled it without hesitation. In the midst of the clearing, she continued to work, moving among the injured, coordinating care, and guiding the team. Her actions were fluid, efficient, and effective. She did not pause to explain, did not seek recognition, did not allow fear to influence her decisions. She simply acted, guided by experience, skill, and an unwavering commitment to help. As the night wore on, the scene stabilized. The injured were tended to, resources were organized, and the immediate urgency had been managed. She allowed herself a brief moment to observe, to reflect on the convergence of her past and present. She had arrived as a nurse, leaving her ordinary life behind, but she had become much more. Her presence had shaped the outcome. Her skills had guided action, and her calm authority had transformed chaos into controlled care. She understood, in that moment, the value of every choice, every training, and every experience that had led her here. She was not defined by a single role or identity, but by the sum of her experiences and the actions she took when it mattered most. The ordinary life she had chosen was not a denial of her past, but a balance that allowed her to contribute when the world needed her expertise. As dawn approached, the first light of morning breaking over the horizon, she stood in the clearing, surveying the scene one last time. The soldiers moved efficiently. The injured were stable, and order had been restored. She had fulfilled her role, drawing on every skill, every lesson, and every ounce of experience to guide the operation. She knew the day ahead would bring new challenges, but for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Her past had prepared her, her present actions had shaped outcomes, and her presence had made a difference. She had stepped out of the ordinary into the extraordinary, and she had responded with calm, efficiency, and compassion. The soldiers gathered around, acknowledging her contributions silently. They did not need words. Her actions spoke volumes. They knew who she was, why she commanded respect, and why the simple address of ma'am carried weight. It was not about rank or recognition. It was about skill, experience, and the ability to lead when it mattered most. As she prepared to move on, to return to the helicopter or to continue her mission, she felt the quiet satisfaction of purpose fulfilled. The ordinary nurse who had clocked out hours ago had become a symbol of calm authority, a guide in chaos, and a source of reassurance to those around her. Her past and present had converged, and she had acted with clarity, precision, and unwavering commitment. In the soft light of early morning, she took a deep breath, steadying herself for the next steps. She had proven, once again, that true strength often lies beneath quiet appearances, that skills honed in unseen environments can save lives, and that calm authority, grounded in experience, can transform even the most chaotic situations into moments of controlled care and decisive action. The sun was rising, casting a soft golden glow across the clearing. The helicopter stood ready, its rotors quiet for a moment, as the soldiers organized equipment and prepared for the next phase. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night, the events that unfolded and the lives that had been touched by her actions. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by calm satisfaction and a quiet sense of purpose. She moved among the team one last time, checking on injured individuals, ensuring the medics and soldiers had everything they needed. Her hands were steady, her voice calm, and every instruction was clear. Even in these final moments, she maintained focus, knowing that attention to detail mattered until the very end. The lead soldier approached her, nodding with quiet respect. "You've done more than we could have hoped. Thank you." She nodded, her expression composed. It's what needed to be done. Everyone did their part. He looked at her carefully, as if weighing words. "No, ma'am. Your part was critical. The others followed your lead. They trusted your judgment." She allowed herself a small smile, not from pride, but acknowledgement. Recognition had never been her goal. Responsibility, action, and calm leadership were enough. She had stepped forward when the situation demanded it, and that was her measure of success. The soldiers began moving to load equipment into the helicopter. She stayed near, ensuring nothing was left behind, observing the area one last time. The chaos of the night had been transformed into order, and the sense of accomplishment was quiet but profound. She had guided the team, saved lives, and restored structure where uncertainty had reigned. A medic approached her, voice low and sincere. "I've never seen anyone work like that. You didn't just treat injuries. You gave confidence, structure, and calm. It was remarkable." She met his eyes briefly. "You did the work too. We did this together." He nodded, understanding the unspoken truth. Her presence had changed everything, not because she claimed authority, but because she had embodied it silently, naturally, and effectively. The lead soldier checked the area once more, then gestured toward the helicopter. "We need to move. The next stage awaits. Are you ready?" She adjusted her bag, secured straps, and nodded. "I'm ready." They moved toward the helicopter, each step deliberate. The team followed, forming an organized line. She stepped up first, boarding the aircraft with steady movements. The soldiers secured themselves around her, their efficiency silent but precise. The helicopter lifted gently, the rotors humming steadily, carrying them into the sky once more. From above, the clearing looked peaceful, almost serene. The events of the night were now part of the landscape, their significance hidden beneath ordinary light and shadows. She looked down, reflecting briefly on the contrast between the ordinary world she had left behind and the extraordinary demand she had answered. The people below saw only a nurse, unaware of the life that had shaped her, the skills that had guided her, and the calm authority that had influenced every action. She allowed herself a moment of quiet thought. Her choice to live a simple, ordinary life had not diminished her past. It had preserved it, keeping her ready for moments when experience, judgment, and skill were required. She understood now, more clearly than ever, that ordinary life and extraordinary responsibility could coexist. They were not opposing forces but complementary, each giving context to the other. The lead soldier spoke quietly beside her, voice respectful. "Your presence makes all the difference. Every mission, every operation, every life, your contribution changes the outcome." She nodded, considering his words. "It's not about me. It's about being prepared, about acting when needed, about helping when the opportunity arises." He acknowledged this with a slight nod, his eyes reflecting understanding. They did not need further conversation. The helicopter moved steadily, and the world below continued, unaware but safe, guided by quiet, deliberate actions unseen. As they flew, she thought about the people she had left at the hospital, her colleagues, who saw her as a dedicated, steady nurse, unaware of the depth of her experience. She hoped they would continue their work with the same dedication she had observed in them. They would never know the full story. Yet their efforts mattered, just as every small act of care mattered in shaping outcomes. The helicopter approached a new location, the next stage of the mission awaiting them. She prepared mentally, focusing her attention on the tasks ahead. Each step, Each action required clarity, precision, and calm. She had done this before in other times and places, and she would do it again now. The soldiers adjusted positions, readying for descent. She checked her equipment, ensuring everything was secure, efficient, and accessible. Her mind cataloged details, anticipated needs, and prepared for the swift action that would be required. She was not nervous. She was ready. Experience and training guided her naturally. They touched down smoothly in the next clearing, and the soldiers disembarked quickly, forming the familiar protective perimeter. She followed, her steps deliberate, observing the terrain, the environment, and any potential complications. Her instincts were sharp, honed by years of experience, and she moved with confidence, calm, and purpose. The scene before her was tense but manageable. Injured individuals were present, equipment was deployed, and personnel were in position. She assessed quickly, directing medics, coordinating with soldiers, and prioritizing care. Her actions were decisive, her voice calm, and her instructions clear. Time passed in a focused blur. She moved from one person to another, stabilizing, instructing, and providing guidance. The soldiers followed her lead, medics adjusted to her commands, and the situation gradually became organized. Her calm presence shaped the scene, transforming urgency into controlled action, fear into confidence. The sun continued rising, light spreading across the landscape. Shadows shifted, and the world slowly revealed itself in new clarity. She allowed herself brief moments to observe, reflect, and anticipate. Her past had prepared her for this. Her present actions ensured success, and her calm authority guided everyone around her. Finally, the immediate tasks were complete. The injured were stabilized, the team was organized, and the situation was under control. She took a moment to breathe, appreciating the quiet sense of accomplishment. The soldiers around her acknowledged her with subtle gestures, their respect implicit and earned. The helicopter returned, ready to transport personnel and equipment as needed. She secured her bag, adjusted her gear, and prepared to board. The lead soldier approached, offering a small nod. "Your guidance made this possible. Thank you, ma'am." She smiled faintly, nodding in acknowledgement. It was necessary. That's all. She stepped into the helicopter, the soldiers following. As the aircraft lifted smoothly, she looked down at the clearing. The scene of controlled chaos now organized and calm. The lives she had touched, the order she had restored, and the calm she had instilled were all silent accomplishments, unseen by the ordinary world below. The flight back was quiet, reflective, and steady. She considered the events of the night, the lives affected, and the trust placed in her by those around her. Recognition was not required. The results, the calm authority, and the skillful actions were their own reward. She knew that she would return to the ordinary world eventually, resume shifts, care for patients, and blend into quiet life once more. Yet, she understood that her skills, experience, and calm authority would always be part of her, ready for the moments when they were truly needed. As the helicopter descended near her original location, the familiar cityscape came into view. Lights, streets, and buildings reflected the normalcy of daily life. She felt a sense of transition, a shift from the extraordinary back to the ordinary. But she also knew that the line between them was not rigid. Preparedness, skill, and calm action could exist beneath quiet appearances, and she carried that knowledge always. The aircraft landed smoothly. The soldiers moved efficiently, unloading equipment and personnel. She followed, stepping onto familiar ground, yet she was changed. The events, the responsibility, and the lives she had impacted were part of her now, woven into her ordinary existence. The lead soldier turned to her one last time. "Your expertise is invaluable. The world is safer because of your actions." She nodded, voice quiet but confident. "I did what was necessary. That is enough." He smiled faintly, understanding the unspoken truth. Recognition was never her goal. Impact was. Presence mattered. Calm authority, grounded in skill and experience, made all the difference. She walked away from the helicopter, her bag over her shoulder, blending into the city streets once more. Passers-by saw a tired nurse, finishing her night, unaware of the extraordinary actions that had unfolded. She smiled faintly to herself, knowing that true strength often works silently, revealed only when it was truly needed. As she approached the familiar hospital, she noticed the quiet rhythm of the morning shift beginning. Colleagues waved, smiled, and returned to their work. She clocked in, exchanged greetings, and moved to her post, ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in skill and experience. She had stepped out of ordinary life into extraordinary responsibility, acted with precision and calm, and returned. The world was unchanged, yet safer, steadier, and better because of her actions. And she would continue, quietly, faithfully, ready for the moments when her presence, skills, and calm authority were needed again. The nurse who had clocked out hours ago had returned to her ordinary life. Yet she carried with her the knowledge that true strength often lives beneath quiet appearances, and that calm, skillful action, guided by experience and focus, could change lives in ways unseen but profoundly felt.